Okay, so I'm gonna start this video off with after my suicide attempt, and then go forward from my life where where I would have been up to and where I went from there. And so after I tried to kill myself with a toast in the bathtub, it ended up just exploding, and I ended up just blacking out. This is I endured it, but I had survived it, and the only thing I remembered was my aunt and my brother taking me out of the bathtub, and an ambulance showing up soon later, like 5 minutes right after. Then um, they brought me into the hospital and they explained like what happened, the situation, what could have possibly be, some of the after effects, I guess. And didn't see my doctor. There was no doctor there for me at the time. So they just advised me to go to the psych ward and just take the 3 days mandatory thing, and I agreed to it, and it ended up being between a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And so I saw my doctor a grand total like 4 times after he was validating me and um, diagnosing me, and so it was like obviously depression and split personality. I was telling me her voices, and so he thought it was schizophrenia or split personality, but he didn't spend a whole lot of time, just did a few questions, and he got me my sleeping pills and anti-psyches, and he would leave. So in the time I was in my room, I've been in the psych ward, probably this would be my fourth time. And so I ended up not staying in my room. I just ended up just walking around, just looking around, seeing any faces, and watching TV and drawing and trying to digest what was going on. So I ended up eventually um, going through my friends list and trying to figure out to change from this past life that I had. I was trying to figure out my new path and identity in a sense. I was constantly, almost in a sense, living in my ex-girlfriend's shadow of this type of guy I was supposed to be, but I wasn't happy with that character I was playing. So I eventually started going through my Facebook and friends and contacts and start removing people that were taking her side and being close to her, and kind of just ignoring me and leaving me in the dark and believing all her bullshit that she was a victim in her relationship, and I was the monster in the story, or the villain. And so I end up just abandoning those friends because I'm not going to be friends with people that were taking my ex and didn't bother seeing what was going on with me. And eventually it kind of turned to a bit of resentment because I end up just resenting my friends. So I left those people behind, and I ended up just kind of making new friends and new people. And in this transition, I was still struggling to figure out who I am and what I wanted to do with myself. I was still drinking, I was still doing drugs at this time, and when I went to work, I used to be pretty cheery, outgoing, and kind of funny. But I ended up being just going to work, just waiting for the shift to be done, just to go home so I can go continue drinking, just to numb out like this pain and the way I was feeling. I was definitely lost where I was. So, uh, I was trying to figure out my identity, so I kind of just went through a transition of different, dating different people and having new friends. It wasn't the best choice of friends I was making. At this time, I also had a roommate named Travis, who I really enjoyed having around. He was pretty funny. He was a different type of personality. We would play Yu-Gi-Oh a lot, and it was just a change in my routine. But he brought a lot of like shitty friends over, and they would, steal from my home, But at this time, I didn't care because I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to lose all my whatever friends I had left. So I kind of endured that part of that. I ended up changing my whole apartment around to fit everybody's needs in a sense. I put my room in, and Travis has got his own room, and the living room ended up being like this, I guess, a living room, a hangout spot where before I used to just have a couch and a TV there, and then I just had a shit ton of couches in there. I end up just um, being alone in my room. I would go to work, come home, and start drinking immediately, and take a shower, listen to music, and just lay in bed until the next day. And that was just the routine over and over again until I would figure something out. And so eventually I started to go walks at night to stop change the routine so I wouldn't just go home and drink. I was still having suicidal urges where I would, if I was get drunk enough, I would have the confidence to take my own life once again. And so I was battling that, and I had a few slip ups here and there. And the current friends I was hanging out with just didn't give a shit as long as I was still paying the rent and still, as long as I didn't die and it didn't had anything to do with it. I say even my own brother at the time didn't really give a shit either. He just did his own thing. He was constantly just sleeping around with women, and he came back to my place to sleep if he didn't have a sleep out already, and that's it. I was just hanging around with a lot of selfish people, but to take accountability, it was my choice. I could have changed it, but I kind of just stayed in that situation so I didn't feel alone. So I was seeing a girl named Brooke before um, the breakup, but then I started seeing her after, and I just felt like she was just using me for money. She was also seeing other men, and I always seemed to be like um, constantly left on the back burner with her, and it was kind of like that for like 2 3 months until I finally just gave up and just said like fuck it. I ended up just moving on, and I haven't seen her since, like at all. It was like cold turkey. I think she took the hint. And then I started seeing a girl named Melissa after that. She was an older woman with kids, and I figured like maybe that'll be my next position in life is to be some kind of parent, maybe something different. Maybe being a dad would be, or a stepdad would be different and get me out of this hole. We dated for a bit, but since we lived too far, we couldn't see each other as often as much as I kind of needed her more. Uh, where my mental state was at. So eventually, she ignored me for what felt like 3 days or so, and I ended up just said, "Okay, fuck it. We're just gonna break up," and I went from there. And then eventually, I was kind of just trying to see other people, and I end up losing myself a lot of the time. Um, my brother was constantly out seeing other girls, and Travis was just home kind of fucking up my place, and I was just in my bedroom at this time, and it was like that for maybe 3 months. And I know they kind of tried to get me out and change the routine up, but I was pretty stubborn. So eventually I try to keep in contact with like family members, more importantly my grandma. And my mom was taking my ex aside, so I didn't even bother trying to get in touch with her. There was like no point because I made it clear to myself not to associate anybody with who's in contact or friendship with my ex. It's like if you can believe the accusations that I had with her, it's like then you didn't know me. It says I was a lot of asshole traits, but I was never a monster like that. Um, Some of my friends tried to keep in contact. There was a guy named Kevin. I really enjoyed his company and our talks because we were kind of down to earth. But I think the one thing that pushed it to the point where it was like I can never trust anybody ever again, kind of thing. He never, like, I guess I'll leave it as the last bit of information. So, um, he took me out for dinner once where I paid for my own and he paid for his, and we just had jokes and we just talked about some deep shit. And he was checking up on me and making sure I wasn't doing anything stupid again. And at this time, I think I was really unpredictable, so I pretty much could have just ended my life anywhere I was standing. I was constantly carrying a knife too, because like I guess once you cross that threshold of like killing yourself and you kind of come back and you almost feel like you're so depressed like you don't even care anymore. I was pretty much like a walking zombie. And so Kevin and I we were still kind of close because we were also work together. I still had Donald at this time. We were pretty much like brothers. I still consider him a brother. I still had my supervisor. He was like a dad figure. He actually did check up on me in the hospital when I got there. And like we were I guess just trying to keep me grounded. They were reminding me that things weren't always as bad. They all said their advice, like Donald, Kevin, and Steph. Even my other friend that was there, Eric, they would always remind me that things are going to get better eventually. And like at this current time, right now, I take their word for it that it did get a lot better. But we're not going to jump the story. We're waiting until we get from there to there. Because this will be like almost 4 years ago. So like we still have quite a few episodes to go till we get to this current time. Uh, so I got to the hospital. I tried to kill myself multiple times, or tried to attempt to. I made new friends. Couldn't get out, and my friends that stuck around, stuck around. Even Tyler and Jamie, they kept checking up on me, but didn't want to be like a burden to everybody that was involved with me. That I didn't need to be babysit because they all have their own lives. So I distant myself a lot to fill the void. I just ended up just doing drugs, drinking, and sex. Just have a reason, I guess, to stay, but at the same time, I was trying to push myself to do it. It was just a weird limbo headspace I was in. At this current time, though, my ex girlfriend was dating a guy named Devin, and they were together for a whole 7 months. And so it was like we're trying to recap this whole part within that 7 months. She seemed to be happy, and I was happy for her. I was holding some of her stuff. Eventually, I had to like let it go, but we'll get there. I was still nice enough to hold on to her clothes, her belongings, and everything else, and I kept it in a storage in my closet because we were still friends, I guess. Um, this is where I met John and Jason, uh, Dylan, Keegan, Austin, and Jacob. I don't want to really give last names because I don't want to reveal the identities, but whoever knows me knows who these people are. And it was a good group I was hanging out with for a couple of months. They were introduced to me by Chance and Kevin and Travis, and they were pretty much younger, but they reminded me of like my younger days. And I was kind of just weren't really hanging out with them or associating with them. I just happened to be in the same area as them because they weren't my friends. They were Travis and Chance and Kevin's friends. But I mean, I was hanging out with Kevin and Travis and Chance, who they were hanging out with. So it was like a third party type of thing. Uh, so they pretty much I was like almost like a homeless shelter at this point because everybody just came over, ate the food, chilled and stuff like that majority of the time, even if I was home or not. So I wouldn't be surprised why things were stolen because I was kind of being an idiot. Uh, it was kind of just that for quite a few months of just them coming over. Eventually, I think Chance was dating this girl that I'm now dating now. Uh, this is where everything started coming to be more chaotic, but eventually it found its peace. But I guess we'll go through that story on next episode where my brother got stabbed and how I met my fiance and the chaos that presumed after that. So just right before that, I guess I was kind of just mostly skateboarding around and keeping my headspace clear. And I skateboarded a lot, listened to music, and I traveled a lot across the borders of all the way around our town, and even eventually down to Atholville and all around there, all the way to Dalhousie even. And it was nice to like to just explore and be free to just walk around because you weren't chained and bound to anything. My ex was very insecure for me even traveling around outside of that because she thought I would do something stupid because my past character was very like unpredictable and chaotic in a sense. I just didn't have a straight state of mind. I was very broken. How I was coping with all my shit was very toxic, which probably paid a heavy. It was laid heavy on my ex's shoulders. So I had to take accountability of the character that who I was before that didn't heal properly, that took a lot of shortcuts. I was very angry, very territorial, and very stubborn, and it was just ways for me to cope from my past trauma, and it was not the right way to do it because I became the worst version of myself in a sense, and I put all my shit on everybody. I used to trauma dump, I guess, but it's quite a growth to change from who you were to who you are now, and it's quite the journey. And it's like if you keep following and keep listening to my story, and you'll see how I got from there to here. That we're two different people. That um, it's just listen to my side of the story and to go forward from here. I'm gonna cut it short for now because I want to save the rest for the more chaotic part of the story for next week. So thank you for watching and thank you for taking the time to see this video. You don't have to like or subscribe, but I appreciate it if you do. So stay tuned for next week.